What is up, Soul Warriors? Welcome to this season 5 of the Recovery Soul Food Podcast. I am your host, REV.LC, and I am always grateful and honored to even be considered to do something like this and to share any type of message of healing with you today. You're in the virtual mentor season, and I have such a special gift for you today. I'm just honored and in awe at how the divine works and source energy works in our world because I am being introduced to this guest today as I am introducing her work to all of you. And it's already been so expanding for me just to spend time in her energy. So this is going to be an amazing, amazing show. If you get great value from our content here, then please do all of the things that we do on social media, the likes, the subscribes, the bell notifications, and follow us on Instagram at recovery_soulfood. And man, I'm so ready to get into this. So today's guest. Well, I'll start it this way. We'll start it this way. So when an abuse victim is lured into the insane world of narcissism, it is no different than a victim being manipulated and onboarded into the private world of a religious cult. So our guest today is Dr. Tracie Kemble. She is a thought leader, entrepreneur, women's empowerment expert, author, and most important, she is a survivor of narcissistic abuse. And from firsthand experience, she knows how difficult the road to recovery is and has spent a good portion of the past 26 years just dedicating her life to helping other women heal from narcissistic trauma. Listen, this lady's got it all. She has written a new book called Narctionary, and I wrote it down so that I would not get it wrong. And it's not here, it's up here. But it is a dictionary for people healing from narcissistic abuse. And she's going to tell us why it's so important for this. She is also the founder of the WIN, WIN Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit that offers programs of recovery for those faced with narcissistic trauma. And we don't realize in the recovery and substance use world, we are in those relationships all the time, and it doesn't matter. So I don't want to just talk to the ladies here today, because I want to talk to the men too, because I hope there's some men here with us today. The more we understand about what these terms are and what this means, and the more we can become aware of those things in our lives and women, I mean, it's healing for all of us. This is the time of empowering the divine feminine, and we as the masculine have a role in becoming our divine selves, and it helps each and every one of us. So if you're ready to grow, she's done so much. She's here to talk about her book today. I'm super excited to have her with me, and if I don't stop talking, I'm going to waste time with her, and that's not fair to you. She's amazing. So if you're ready to get into this season 5, episode 4 of the Recovery Soul Food Podcast meets Dr. Tracie Kemble, we're ready. So let's go. Well, Dr. Tracie, welcome to this show. Super excited.
I'm super excited to be here.
This is awesome. I'm going to say this. We said it before, but, I just started looking at your website, drtracy.tv, and I'm going to tell you, I was just completely just enthralled with how much you offer that people going through this type of healing, and we don't realize that this is a part of it. It seems like recovery's in a certain boxes, but we don't realize all the healing that goes along with it. So I would love for you to kind of tell us how you came to this space, who you are, and then we're going to talk about your amazing work.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was listening to the introduction and it sounds just so good to hear it back on the other side. How I came into this space was spending years and years of my life in deep suffering, pain. And the way that I describe it to people is it was as though I was going through life with my hand on the electric burner stove,
Mm,
and people would walk by and be like, "Oh my god, what?
yeah.
Does that hurt?" Uh-huh.
Ye-
Do
Yeah.
you want to remove your hand? And the response that I had because of my trauma wounds was, "Can I?"
Mm,
I didn't
beautiful.
know that I knew something was wrong in life. I knew I was in deep pain because I had been exposed to so many elements as a child. I just thought this is how life was supposed to feel. And
Mm,
that's where I was, and how I got to this place is learning step by step, lesson by lesson, that I do have the power to protect myself, to keep myself safe, to make healthy choices in love, to do it wrong and then get it right,
mm.
and one foot in front of the other, not taking on too much, not compromising what I am capable of doing. And here I am, almost 30 years later into the recovery journey, and still doing what I love doing, only I'm much more passionate than I was before.
That's beautiful. That's what I call alignment right there. Just utter and beautiful alignment. And talking about just having that constant state of suffering. I've never heard it put so clearly, but that I get you. Like I feel that in my life, 22 years of just pure active addiction to mask trauma that was hurting me so bad. I didn't know it could be any different. And it was a
Right.
moment of empowerment. So how amazing that we come to this place of just divine alignment from a place that just felt like you had no choices and no way to get out. And,
I
you
used to
know,
say that I felt like I was the ping pong ball in on the table of life, just getting
mm,
whacked back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and I didn't have any power to stop the pain that was externally, but also all the pain that I was carrying on the inside,
yeah.
because I have these things that I call memos from Normal Land.
Mm,
And it's I believe, like, at one point I went through my life, and I would see people doing life normally, and I would be like, how do they do that? And I told myself a story that, you know what, there is a secret operation manual out there, and they got the operation manual. I want to be on that list. I want to be on the email list that the memos from Normal Land come
yeah.
in. This is how the
Yeah.
normal people do things. And so I
Yeah.
started my own memo from Normal Land, and one of
Oh,
my
wow.
memos from Normal Land is, if if you're feeling crazy, it means that something in your life is crazy and needs to be
Hmm.
fixed. Doesn't mean I'm
Yeah.
crazy. It means something in my life is crazy. Where in the past, if I felt crazy, I would say, I'm crazy, I'm
Mm,
not well, instead of saying, no, this environment, this person, this dynamic, this situation is crazy. And because I'm an empath, I'm feeling crazy. And I need to take care of that which is crazy, and
yeah.
protect myself.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I read that quote on your website, and I was just in awe of that because that's so true about. I mean, there's so much to this healing, and there's so many people in the world right now that are moving towards a path of healing, and or they're knowing they want to. They're fighting with themselves to go there, and I think this is a beautiful time um, for all of these conversations. Now, you talk a lot in your work, and I really want to talk about the women's self empowerment stuff that you're an absolute expert on. Um, and you do talk a lot about, self-love being a foundation. I believe that with everything that I am, and I believe we have to redefine love from that program of what we think it is. Like, when we come out of toxic relationships, we have still that toxic program of love, and sometimes I notice with me in my self-love journey, I would bring some of those with me, and it would just be about exposing them and healing them out. But tell me, I don't you'd say how it goes first, because I don't know if you have to get empowerment before self-love. I know you gotta get awareness, but you tell me in those things, so important about that self-love foundation, how it equates to empowerment, and just how that journey was for you, how it is, and what you share, please.
Great question. Great question. Great question. Because what I discovered on my recovery journey is I went in to try to change behavior, and you need to put up boundaries. You need to work on your codependence. You need to do all these things that my big thing was I was a love addict, and so I had all that going on, and I made progress. Reverend, I made progress.
Yeah.
I would do it. I would study it
Yeah.
here, and I'm going to do this. I'm going
Yeah.
to do it right because I didn't want to suffer. What I realized, and I did it, that I did the proper recovery first and got all those tools. And then years later, and it's one of those things that I can really thank a narcissistic relationship for this understanding, is that um, in the world of narcissism is a spectrum disorder. And I won't jump into that really quick, just I'll stay on your question.
Yeah. Do
And
it.
so we need this healthy narcissism here to keep the good in and the bad out. As it goes on
Mm.
up the scale, it goes into narcissistic characteristics, difficult people. Goes on up the scale, it becomes narcissistic personality disorder, problematic people. As it goes on up the scale, it then goes into antisocial, sociopath, psychopath, dangerous people. Stay away from them.
Mm-hmm.
One day, when this spectrum was again being discussed, my question was, well, if the extreme narcissism is over here, as I believe in the law of polarity, what's over here?
Mm.
And what was discovered is that what was over here is a condition called self-love deficiency disorder.
Mm.
How many of us have not heard about that but need to? There was
Yes.
a statistic I read yesterday that said 70% of women don't love themselves. They don't know how to love themselves. And
Wow.
I was that woman. So I had this click in my mind that I said, maybe if I stop focusing on the narcissist and their
Mm.
condition, and instead I began to try to heal this self-love foundation, what would happen? It was a game changer for me. It was a game changer, because what I realized about self-love is, first off, it wasn't anything that I thought it was, and especially coming
Right.
from a narcissistic background where I'm
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and what I have come to discover is two things. The first is that self-love is like a boardwalk, is that
Mm.
there are many planks that need to be laid side by side by side by side, and the collection of these planks is what make this steely foundation of self-love. So it's
Mm.
not one thing of making mantras or chants or saying I look
Yeah.
good today or I feel good today. It's having a first voice. It's
Mm.
knowing where your home base is. It's safety. I mean, in my program that I run with recovery, there's 42. It's a year-long program, and every week there's 42 planks that you learn about self-love. But what
Amazing.
I discovered is that self-love is the base of everything.
Mm.
If you want to heal in your recovery and have it go from here to here, it's the fuel of self-love that gets it there. That if you
Yes.
want to be better in relationships, keep the good in, hold the bad out, that takes self-love. It doesn't take the boundary. The boundary is the action.
Yes.
Self-love that says, not here, not today, not my life. If you want to stay in that state of sobriety, it's a matter of having that value with yourself to say, I'm not going to torture myself for 1 hour of relief of being high.
Yes. Yes.
The payoff's not there. I'm more valuable than 1 hour of feeling good. I deserve to
Yes.
feel good 24 hours a day, even when I'm having a
Yes.
bad day,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. Yes. And you're also talking, that's why this is so special. You're also talking to families of those in, a place of that active addiction or relapse, because they have to do the same thing. I had to do it when my wife went into a relapse when we first got together. I had to stop focusing
Yeah.
on that behavior, and I started having to believe that there was something else, and I turned and I started going within, and that was the moment where I went from just what you described, from woke to awakening into a healing journey. And I'm a reverend of the 12 universal laws and all that is divine myself, and so I get that polarity. If this isn't it, like, there's an option, and it's been that kind of journey, and you said it so wonderfully, and so many people need to hear that. So I hope that that will be something people will go back and listen to wherever they are. And so, well, that, I know that naturally leads to empowerment, but I don't know what's more natural to do right now, because I think we need to talk about narcissism in specific and those behaviors and all of that. I think this is a great platform. Now you decide where it goes in, but I want us to talk about that so that we can start to recognize places within ourselves that still need healing, and in others, that where we can begin to start to see that that's not behavior that I deserve. And maybe we don't recognize it because, you know, how we grew up, and that's all we know. So I do want to give you as much time as you want and need to talk about that, in which you are an absolute expert in, and because I'm interested to learn as much as anyone else. So you naturally take that. Where do you want to talk about empowerment first, or do you want to talk about that first? It's up to
Well,
you.
let's talk about narcissism itself. I touched on it just a bit to
Mm-hmm.
say that we all need what's called this healthy narcissism to keep the good in and the bad out. And one thing that's happening with narcissism is it is thrown around like M&Ms right
Yes.
now. Is that oh, they're narcissist, oh, they're narcissist, oh, they're narcissist. Well,
Mm-hmm.
here's a memo from Normal Land: is that all of us can be a bit narcissistic at times. If you step back and you look at somebody who is knee deep in the addiction process, they're totally narcissistic, only thinking
Oh
about
gosh.
themselves, not having
Oh
empathy
yeah.
towards other people, blah blah blah
Yes.
blah 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 blah. Now, does this mean that they're a narcissist? Does this mean that they're having a narcissistic episode? Is that survival? There are many elements that have to go into that. Now, the response to it, if you are the person who is living with somebody who's addicting, the response is the same. If they are behaving narcissistic, you need to respond in healing, recovery
Mm.
measures, not enabling, not fuel sourcing.
Yes.
The addicts are the best at crazy making and
Oh
gaslighting.
yes.
And I,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, I have
Yep.
somebody in my family who still struggles, and she's doing better every day. She's doing better, but
Good.
she had a bit of a slip up, and she was doing something, and it caused a phone call, blah blah blah, one of those. And I just call her directly now, and I'm like, yes or no, did you do this? And we have a very honest relationship, and she gives me the answer, and I'm like, okay, are you gaslighting at all? I'm
Mm.
not saying are you lying, are you
Yes.
gaslighting at all? And because they're good at gaslighting. So
Oh
anyway,
yes. Yes.
um, so it's important to know that if you are standing by somebody who's in recovery, you're probably dealing with somebody who is showing you a lot of narcissism. Does that mean when they get well that they won't be narcissistic? There's a possibility that they won't.
Mhm.
That's just every person who's in addiction slips into ugly narcissism. Does it make them a
Yes.
narcissist? It's too soon to tell.
Mhm.
And so without remove addiction from it, we all can have bad days, and all of us can just have, I call them my jerk cards. And each and every one of us, I think, when we're in a relationship, that we get 4 jerk cards a year, which means
Mm.
that once a quarter, if I'm just off, and the reason I say once a quarter is because I shouldn't be going off once a week, once a day,
Mm.
once a month. It shouldn't be that way.
Okay. Yep.
I should have an off day. And if I'm aware and accountable, I'll just redeem my jerk card. I'll be like, hey, here's my jerk card. Can I just get off the hook on this one? And, I only have 3 left for the rest of the year. So,
Yep. That's
so it's
great.
important to know that we can all act bad. We can all have these responses like no empathy, selfishness, immaturity of response, adult temper tantrums, all these different things. These are just splashes of narcissistic characteristics. But when you are with somebody who is truly on the spectrum, you're dealing with somebody who, through their shenanigans, their abuses, that they can leave a person, as I described, that when I went into recovery from narcissistic abuse trauma, and it was before it was a popular buzzword and whatnot, and I sat down in front of the therapist, and as the therapist says, why are you here? And I said, because my brain feels like it's made of mush and I feel invisible.
Mm.
And that's the only way that I could describe all of my trauma wounds that had built up inside of me to that point. And then I
Mm.
had to begin, learning about this condition that I was in, getting very, very educated, understanding my trauma wounds, and going in and beginning to heal my trauma wounds. And trauma wound recovery is intense, but man,
It's
being on the
very,
other side of trauma wound,
yes.
it's worth the intensity.
Isn't it? Isn't it? That is 1,000% right. 1,000% right. It is just so grateful to be on the other side. It's hell going through, but it's so worth it. And that's that and it lends itself when you do to that self-love foundation. It really, really does, because you start to feel important, good enough and valuable, just like you said earlier. So tell can we talk a little bit more about what it's like for someone to go into healing, like, because you offer a lot of programs there on your website. Reclaiming Me is looks like it's just tremendous.
Thank you.
Like, I want to do all this stuff, everything's on there. I just want to do all of it.
Oh,
um,
good. Yeah, you can be my guest. Be my guest.
awesome, awesome. So I wanted to lead us into how you wrote this new book, Narctionary,
Mhm.
and how that lends to the healing, and you take that away, because I want to know.
Oh, great. Okay, so the Narctionary it's a dictionary, and it outlines over 350 terms, phrases, and words that are related to narcissism, narcissistic abuse trauma, and narcissistic abuse recovery. Because just like every injury has a very specific path of recovery, simply going through standard therapy will not heal you from the trauma that happens because of narcissistic abuse.
Mm,
So this is a comprehensive 1-year program, and it's been going on for 30 years. So the way that the Narctionary book got, and it came together so quickly, Reverend, you can't imagine. So what happened was, it was around 8 or 9 months ago, and I had a friend. She found herself going through the discard. She was married, and after 12 years, the narcissist just came home and was like, "Don't serve a purpose for me anymore. I'm leaving." And she was on the floor.
mm,
And so she's like, "I know that you specialize in this, and my head is just spinning, and I'm devastated." And, the typical crash syndromes. And so she's like, when you go through a narcissistic relationship, and you have so many questions when you start to get sober, which means you start to get yourself back and understand the trauma that you've been through. And you hear what this person that claims they loved you is doing to you, and you want to pull away. You want to slip into that denial, which is denial is the drink of the narcissistic abuse trauma
mhm,
victim. So you want to, jump back in there and anesthetize, but you have to lean into that pain. And so what happened is, she called me and she's like, "Well, I just don't know what's happening. I mean, I can't stop thinking about it. And I'm just repeating. I said, "Oh, that's called rumination." She's like, "What? Rumination?" "Yeah, it's when your mind is trying to find answers for your heart." Okay. And
mm,
so, but it didn't make sense to me, because, he was here, and then all of a sudden one day he came home, and he just left. He just dumped me and he left after 12 years. I said, yeah, that's called the discard. It's phase for 3 in the narcissistic cycle. It's called the what? It's called the discard. Oh, she goes, and then, it was so frustrating because all of our arguments, they just went in circles. I said, yeah, they probably happened over a fight over nothing. What's a fight over nothing? Fight over
Mm,
nothing. It's a fight over nothing. It's to get fuel for the narcissist.
mm,
And then the last thing that she said was, and every time we talked, I would just get so confused. And I said, well, that's because you're being word saladed. Word
mm.
salad, what's that? That's when a narcissist takes words and jumbles them up so much that it just feels like a big tossed salad in your brain. You can't make heads or tails of it. So at the end of this conversation, she goes, you know what, Tracy? You should put all of these words in one place so that we newbies can just go in and get educated on even the terminology of recovery.
Right.
And
Mm.
so I literally had, for my own personal recovery, on my handy dandy phone, I had kept the words and the phrases for years and years and years,
Wow.
and I transferred it over and put together the whole book, and that's where it is today.
That's outstanding, and, you all can get it at Amazon.com. I love hearing alignment stories. I just love hearing how things play out. It excites me the most, you know? That's why it comes together so fast, and it's all that preparedness for this one moment. And I what a resource for someone, because I can imagine in a situation like that you just don't know, and I love that you talked about feeling crazy versus owning crazy,
Mhm.
and really letting it be a strategy to you of what's afoot, because sometimes it's so hard to tell.
Well, in the
Gosh, it's so
recovery
much.
journey, from narcissism is that when you enter into recovery, the blame finger is at you. I've done something wrong. I'm
Yes.
flawed. I'm this. And
Yes.
recovery takes, turning that finger outward and saying, wait a minute, you're doing this and you're doing that and you're doing that. And then full recovery has it come back around to say, and what am I doing to participate in this theater?
Mm,
And so one of the things I want to say is I dedicate the book to my mom
mhm.
because when all growing up, she used to say to me, Tracy, when something hurts you and it doesn't have a name, it's like fighting a ghost, and that you can't grab a
Mm,
hold of it and pull it into your life and mend it and heal it and repair it, or if it doesn't best serve you, push it out of your life. But when something has a name, you can grab hold of it. You can pull it into your life. You can mend it. You can heal it. You can push it out of your life if it doesn't best serve you. And so this book is it's slaying the ghosts that live within narcissism, that it's giving that crazy behavior, that manipulative underlying messaging behavior that's going on. It explains the dynamics of what a narcissist is doing, why they do it. It explains your role in it, and it's just by learning bits and pieces of words every single day and giving name to the many ghosts of narcissistic abuse so that you can get well and empowered again.
amazing. Ugh, amazing, and so necessary right now. um how I read over the bio and I look at all the stuff that you do. How in the world do you have any time left to even be sitting here with me? I mean, you have tell what about the Wind Foundation? How did that happen, and tell us about what that is, and
So the
please.
WIN Foundation is it's a nonprofit foundation that it was started 30 years ago when I very first went into recovery. And I've had different phases of my recovery, allow me to say. So it's not like 30 years
Right.
ago I did it and did it right. It's not that way at all. But at that time, as I went into my first round of trauma recovery, is that when I came out of it and I was getting stabilized, my husband says to me, "What are you going to do with all this information?" And I said, "Nothing. I am moving on with my life. I'm never looking back." And he's like, not a good choice. So fast forward. I started a nonprofit with the goal of being able to raise funds and have affordable programs of recovery for women faced with abuse. And that's what we do is we get together twice a week. The classes, the first time people come, I invite everybody as a first time guest, because you have to you have to be able to bond with the environment. You have to feel that it's a good match, and it's a good tribe to align yourself with. And we all need tribes to align ourselves with.
Yes.
We're not supposed to do it alone. And then after that, the classes are only $10 each, because
Wow.
I'm super passionate about making healing affordable for women. Because when I went through it, it was not affordable, and part of the remaining stuck in trauma was, you know, I, I could only afford the therapist at that time so much, and the one-on-one. And so this is a community. It's fun, it's insightful, it's deep, it's loving, it's private, it's inspiring, it's supportive, and we've been doing this 27 years, and we have never missed Wednesday
Wow.
or Thursday.
I read that. I read that. And that's pure passion right there. And it aligns with my heart so much, because the only reason that I started sharing about my own story and my own journey is because I thought that I was God's little joke, and that if I
Mhm.
could find a way, through this and out of this, and was able to start seeing the light, then I thought surely, you know, there has to be something, because I suffered by myself so long because there wasn't
Exactly.
anything. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to create something so that somebody, whatever time of day it is when they're at their worst, knows that they're not by themselves. And because people in early recovery often don't have money, I always wanted to make sure that whatever I do in this world, that I always remain to give free content that's healing, that doesn't always have a sales pitch on the end, that you can watch for free and it actually give you something to take from in life and
Yeah.
move through those gaps. So again, just super excited to be here in your energy, because we share a lot in common. So,
Mhm.
and that's the re is that the Reclaiming Me program then
That's
that goes
yeah.
through
So,
that?
so the Win Foundation is the nonprofit, and the different programs that we have are what they all run through the nonprofit. And
Wow.
we just try to make recovery consistent and super affordable and professional. To make sure that it's not a matter of, wait a minute, it's only $10 and it's not professional or valuable. No, it is. We have professionals all around us making this program better and better every year, and it's just really my heart and passion to make it affordable, because I wouldn't want somebody to feel what I felt,
Yes.
stuck and to think, oh my gosh, money's the only thing, money which I need to pay for somebody else's knowledge. And so now
Yeah.
we have that knowledge available. And so that's the Win Foundation, and that's a nonprofit, my labor of love. And I also run the Feminine Boss Academy, and that's a for
Yeah.
profit, and that's my actual other side of my business, where I teach entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, how to become the boss of their bee and business with feminine energy.
Yes.
And it's all about just teaching people to walk in the divine, and that's just magic. When you learn all those amazing things, it's just magic.
It truly is. It truly is. I can't. I'm so glad that on all the days and all the moments that I wanted to just give up and slide back into that old self because it was familiar, that I can stand with you today and sing of just the amazing life it is when you open yourself up to align with the energy of all, and you follow that path of you, because it's always leading home. I realized when I was in my came to my moment of realizing what had to happen for me to actually step into recovery, you know there was that moment that I just knew that something internally had to change head and heart. But I realized sort of through the journey that the whole time I was in that space of just masking and all of that, I was running from myself. And that the way home was to stop running the opposite direction and just come home to self. And
Absolutely. That ties into so
beautiful
much
journey.
with the recovery at the beginning of our program that I run. Is there's something that people suffer with, and it's a name I came up with myself, and I called it emotional homelessness.
Mm,
And that when we are in deep pain, trauma, wounds, addiction, whatever it is, that I remember one day in crying and saying, I just want to go home. But the
mm,
problem is, I don't know where home is. I'm an adult and I feel homeless. And I term that as emotional homelessness.
mm,
And one of the foundations, one of the pillars, that the planks of self-love is the right to have an emotional home base.
mm,
We need that to have stability in life. We need to have that place. And for me, that emotional place is not this physicality around me. That emotional place, I found my emotional home when I began living my life according to the divine orders, because divine orders says the perfect solution is already in
yes,
place as long as I align myself with it.
yes.
And all I need to know is that formula. How do I align? And when I do, I'm home, I'm grounded, I'm clear, I'm safe, which after a woman turns about 30 years old, her number one thing in her life is safety. I wasn't
Mm,
safe with myself,
mm,
I had to
yeah.
get safe with myself. And that part of that was finding my emotional home, and stop suffering from emotional homelessness.
Yeah, yeah. So what does that process look like for you? Like, when you're in the process of needing to make that alignment or to do that home, like what does that process look like to you? Is it meditation? Is it what is all
So
what did
it's
you start with maybe?
all right. It's a variety of things. It's a variety of different pieces of information within my being, and it's underneath my computer here, so I can reach it in probably just a second. I learned about the energy with words and thoughts.
Mm,
Okay, so
yeah.
this was a huge eye opener for me. And then this group of kinesiologists put together this amazing list of energetic words and feelings, and mainly just words. And on this, I drew it out. I kept it on my wall for the longest time. Now I just carry it with me. That there's actually a line that I put there, and I said, "This is my lifeline," because I used to suffer from very bad depression and anxiety and things of that nature. And it was this one line where the certain word, that the crossover was a word of courage, and it's a matter of understanding that I have to live at an emotional vibration every single day of my life, or if I slip underneath that, I'm in trouble.
Mm,
Those are my danger zone. And so I consciously make this awareness, and I learn through practice how to, if I'm feeling like this, I learn how to ladder myself back to this, all with my eyes on the goal. Like, get over this goal, get over this goal. So how do I do it? I am a big meditator. I start my day every day in quiet time and meditation, and that's how I start my day. I read something good every morning. I look at my day, and I monitor who I'm around, where are my drains going, what is my recovery going to be. It's easy to go like, yeah, I'm just go get a little bit on, but now it's like,
yeah.
what am I going to do to recalibrate? How am I pouring good back into me? I wake up, and the old me always thought about other people first.
Yeah.
And the new me, I think about myself first, and keeping myself grounded. Because when I'm grounded, the people I love get the best of me.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
that's really super healthy love to,
Mm,
I'm feeling good and they're feeling good. And so it's really a win-win. And it's there was one time, Reverend, that I was chewing on rocks that day. And no matter what I did, I just kept remaining grumpy and in a bad mood and a bit pessimistic, and then, which of course attracts more things to happen. And so I was in that entire cycle. And so, I get to this place, I'm like, okay, divine, show me what I need to do to change to get out of this, and I start looking for strategy,
Mm-hmm.
what can I physically do to make sure that
Yes.
this. And all of a sudden, like the huge download that I got is, Tracy, just dance. So I literally, I'm like, dance now. And there was no music on. I stand up and I'm like, okay, what's happening? And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, all right. And I started to move and dance. And so there's so many things that I do throughout the day. I check in with myself throughout the day. How you feeling? Where are your thoughts? Are you chewing on rocks? Are you remembering the good in life? If I feel the ick, as I call it, I say, what was I exposed to? Who said what? That's launching my codependence.
Mm,
Because no matter how far you are in the journey, we get stronger and stronger
yeah.
at our wellness, but our weaknesses can also jump in there. And that's why we always have to have respect for our healing journey. We can never forget where
Yes.
we came from, not to remember the bad, but those brain channels are deep,
Yeah. For
That's
contrast.
biology.
Yeah. Yeah. For contrast. That's
Mhm.
so amazing. It's again, I get the opportunity to do something like this because it's part of my healing journey too, and there's absolutely nothing more than I needed to hear at that time because a lot of people that you talk to now that the wild and woke are on the grind, on the grind, on the grind, and you talked about the most important asset of your entire life, which is your energy. And how am I going to remain in this state of alignment all day? And if I don't, where did I get out and creating a strategy? And again, in starting substance recovery, that was the first thing I did. What's the strategy? Like, I have to make a strategy on how I'm not going to feel this way, because I started to understand that if I continue, what I focus on just is going to just keep coming back. It's not because God hates me, like I used to think. It's because energy attracts energy, and it
Yes.
has no choice. It's a law. It's the difference between an opinion and a law, and it just is.
And the beautiful thing that I learned is, uh,
Right.
God
Right.
hates me is, we all kind of think that the God out there is doing those things, but
Right.
a huge insight and revelation to me was the day that I realized that, wait a minute, this God out there created these things called universal laws.
Yeah.
And because we're physical beings living in a physical world, that's the operations manual. And so if I can just
Yeah.
learn to not fight the system and just lean into the laws, like for example, okay, the law of attraction, that within itself is attracted, right? So that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole energetic thing. But even there's times that, for example, and I feel I'm led that somebody needs to hear this, that when
Go
I'm
ahead.
going through a stage of deprivation,
Mm.
um, the stage of deprivation, I will watch the sea. And there is something that's called the tide law. And the tide law is, when the tide goes out, it always comes back. And
Yeah.
it's impossible for the tide not to come back. And so when things are being pulled out of my life and I'm like scarcity and those natural motions fill in, I just watch the tide and I'm like, the tide never not comes back. And because I live in this universe that operates by the tide law, it is absolutely impossible that whatever's going out, I'm gonna be it's gonna come back, maybe in a
Yeah.
different form. It's not the same water that comes back all the time. It's different water, but it's going to come back. And so these beautiful universal laws are really God's hands at giving us the power
Yes.
and control over what we need in life.
Yes. Oh gosh, so beautifully said. And that's I completely agree with that, tides, and I'm grateful to have been reminded of that as I had the opportunity to live on the beach in 2021, and a great, beautiful part of my another healing journey to start. And I just would watch that water, and I had that thought in my head. It always comes back. It
Always
always comes
back.
back. And
Always.
it was almost like a whisper. Yeah, like a prayer of just a, it always comes back. It always
Yeah.
comes back. And I appreciate you reminding me of that right now in my life, because it's a season of that, and
Yeah,
beautiful.
right now I've noticed that it's a season of quick endings that people are
Yes.
there have been several people that have just been pulled out of my life immediately like this and what is happening? And I was really proud of myself because I was able to say no, 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 no. There's something happening there that I don't see. They were removed, quickly for whatever reason. Take breath. And if my heart and desire has a need for that element in my life, it's going to be fulfilled.
Mm, yes.
I just trust the seasons of life. I just trust the seasons of life because after winter comes spring, after spring comes summer, after summer comes fall. It's like it's
Yep.
never gonna stop, and we're actually okay. We're
Yeah.
actually okay. This is a beautiful world with beautiful people, and I wake up every morning excited to meet and greet those individuals out there.
Yes. Yes, for sure. It's something about, I think when I was back in a very religious world, the word faith meant a certain thing to me. But when I came into this world where of what we're talking about, of laws and energy, then I realized that faith means something completely else,
Exactly.
something completely else. And it's such a wonderful thing to
I'm right
live
there with you.
without expectation of what it has to be in order for me to be okay. That's a freedom, a breaking open of a freedom that so many people, I believe, in this world right now are longing for. But the familiar seems just so comfortable still. They still have their hand on the stove.
Mm,
And, that's why I love having conversations like this, because it'll roll around across somebody who needs certain parts all in it. I'm completely blessed to be sitting in your energy right now, because I'm just it lets me know the miraculous feeling of alignment, and I love it. It's
such a
exciting.
beautiful word. Such a beautiful word.
It is exciting. It's exciting.
It
So
is. Oh,
Dr. Tracy, what do you have coming up? I mean, what
oh
are
my
you
goodness.
got something coming up? Or
We
what all are
do.
you doing?
So what's coming up next is we actually have our big fundraiser for the Win Foundation. It's a big international telecast celebrating women. It's a beauty event. So that's a big thing. But our next big women's conference is called Discover the Divine. And
Mm-hmm.
it's my fifth annual Discover the Divine conference. And it's taking place in beautiful Greece on the Greek Riviera, where for 5 days and 4 nights, we're going to wake up to the sun and the sand and the sea. You're going to meet other women from around the world that want to learn how to step deeper into their divine magic. We're going to, this theme of our this year's divine is called Learning to Manifest Like a Queen. And
Ah,
and I'm really excited because I'm going to talk about the difference between being Cinderella, a princess, and a queen.
nah.
And for years of my life, I was Cinderella. I didn't have a concept of self. I allowed myself to be dingied up by other people's concept of me.
Hmm.
Then I went through the era of my life where I was like a princess. I had many wonderful, beautiful things, but in truth, actually no control over my own life. And then I stepped into understanding what it means to manifest like a queen. And when you begin to majestically manifest, change happens quickly.
Yes.
And you know where your territory is in life. You don't apologize for taking up your space. You don't have a need to conquer other people's spaces, but you fully own that calling that we're stepping into. So it's a combination of celebrating your divine feminine, uh, learning what it means to be a manifester, and really just stepping deeper into the next best definition of yourself.
I love that. I love that, and it's again so necessary right now to bring that aspect of things to people that may already have that the language and may manifest stuff, but what you're talking about is a whole different level of manifestation for sure. And I'm super excited about that. So do they go? Can all that can be found on drtracy.tv, right?
Exactly, exactly, and it's up there. We have limited seats for the Divine. It's taking place in September, September 4th to the 8th, I believe, are the dates. We still have some seats available, and we would love to welcome any women who want to dance in the sea in the sands of the Greek Riviera and awaken that internal goddess within themselves and understand how with certain pieces of information they can really start to manifest their life quickly. There's something that went through my mind for many years. That was that when I came out, when I stepped into my recovery, I had this looming, heavy, stressful thought that I lived with for years. And it was regret because of all the time that I lost. And it, I would see so many things in life that, yeah, were happening. And I couldn't help but go back to say, but God, look at all the time I lost. Look at all the opportunities I lost. Look at
Mm.
so much time I lost just being sad and out of it, and all those different things. And I've learned along my recovery journey some very beautiful exercises in working with the divine and energy, how to make up for lost time.
Mm.
And I'll just give you a sneak peek into it. The way that we make up for lost time is to start living our life to the biggest picture that we can create right now. And what happens is that when your heart is pure and you're suddenly like, you know what? I want to show up. I want to be that expression of the divine here on earth.
Yes.
And you start creating and doing things with your life that everything that you may have missed out on will somehow be brought up to speed. And you'll realize that you might have to reinvent yourself in certain ways, but there is nothing that you cannot recapture that you lost in during what I call your construction zone.
Wonderful. Gosh, that's such a healing message. Now, are you ever going to consider taping one of those retreats and making it a webinar that you can or an online course you can sell?
This one is going to be
Good.
those who cannot join us live.
Good.
We'll have a live feed into the conference.
Yes. Yes. I was hoping so. I just thought, wow, nobody needs to miss that. Like nobody needs to miss that. It probably should be broadcast on regular television, you
Oh,
know?
I love that. I love that
It
thought.
really
That would be a
should.
dream. Wouldn't that be a
Oh my
dream?
gosh, it should. And it's coming. It's coming. The world needs messages and people like you in the world doing what it is that you're passionate about and what you're so good at and amazing at. And I mean, it's an honor to get to sit here with you and just have a conversation like this has been so healing. I'll get to unpack this for however long after. It's so beautiful. Now you just wrote Narctionary, but you have like three other books, right? Three or four other books. The
Too.
Courage to Say No More is number one, right?
My first book that I wrote was my first round out of recovery, out of abuse, and so that's my initial one. And then the book that I wrote after that, as I said, I had suffered from a lot of anxiety and depression, and so I wrote a book that it's called Breaking Up with Anxiety, and this is a really neat recovery book that one day I realized that Anxiety is not a mental disorder, it's a thinking disorder.
Ah,
And my
yes.
thoughts would go nuts and I would shortly follow thereafter. And so that's kind of what opened me up to the whole power of thought. I wrote a book that's called How Not to Care What People Think.
Yes,
And
yes.
I had
I
to
know I've seen that
release,
one.
all the tethers that I had and other people's idea of me or expectations. And then I wrote a book on dreams, and it's called Don't Touch My Tiara.
Love
And
it.
that's
Love
about
it.
how our dreams are our dreams. And, get your hands off my dream.
Yeah. You know what I respect about you the most is that your work, you've continued to put out work as you've evolved through your healing journey, that it didn't have to be this one thing when you first got there, that it became, you just naturally evolved. And I hope that that's what I do over all of this as well, this journey. Just let's just keep going, because it's not a destination, it's an ongoing journey.
It's an ongoing, there's not a right or a wrong. It's if you stay on target with what you're passionate about sharing. I think that that's important. But one thing that I live my life by
Mm,
is it's really important that each of us learn how to create three different spaces, especially when you're in recovery. And when you can hold on to this concept, it makes this whole what we're talking about much easier. Each and every one of us, and we can only do it for ourselves. Nobody can create these spaces for us. So the first space that we have to create is we have to create a space of safety, a place where we can be vulnerable and raw, and where we are comfortable not having the answers. And we need to be able to be like, I don't have the answers. I don't. The second space that we need to create for ourselves is a space of growth. And that space of growth is when I can start to come in and like, hey, I'm questioning this. And hey, I'm no longer that person. I'm here and surrounding myself with this unknown that's kind of exciting, and I can learn and grow. And then the third space that we have to create for ourselves is our brilliance space.
mm.
That even when we are at the depths of what I call our construction zones, right? Those construction zone places,
Love it.
we still have brilliance in us. And we don't have to choose. We don't have to say, because I'm screwed up right now, I'm not brilliant. No. You're in a construction zone in this area of your life, but you're brilliant over here. And so sometimes you got to walk out of the brilliant room and sit in your safety room, then walk into your growth room, and then walk into your brilliance room. And if you're really clear on where you are, all being connected to the authentic self, right? You won't apologize. You won't, we don't have to choose. We don't have to say, like, I'm broken or I'm brilliant. No, I'm both. I don't call it
Yes.
broken. I don't call it broken. I call it under construction.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Our words have power,
Yeah, they
and
do.
what we say to ourselves matters. And it's so important that we, be aware of that, because we tell ourselves all the time. That's why I'll never go anywhere and say, hi, I'm LC and I'm an addict. That's label is not, that's not the box that I live in
Mm-mm.
anymore. And I couldn't grow past that box. So I would go out and come back in and get some sobriety and go back in and sobriety and back and back and back and back until I was blessed to have a 9-month relapse that led to that end of that suffering, to say, okay, what didn't work before? Oh, I just tried to quit drinking and using, but I didn't heal my pain. Oh, okay, well, that's the answer then. So we got to change this,
Yeah, got to get the
and then
pain
start
out.
building to, yeah, you got
And
to.
the reason that we have pain, so many people, and I was there for the longest time, that it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. And so anesthetize, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, feel victimized. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts, just become despondent in life. But then one day I learned that, the best way that I can put it is that the most beautiful paintings in the world are those that have contrast.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't paint with contrast, there's no depth to the
So
painting.
true.
And so the contrast that we experience in life, i.e., the painful moments in life, They are there to tell us, do you know why this hurts? Do you know why this hurts? Why does this hurt? Because you're not meant to have it.
Yeah.
So you got to release it. There's better things out there for you.
Mm.
Take it away. I already did. You need to release it. You're the one who keeps
Yeah.
holding on.
Yeah. So true.
Mm.
So true.
We're
Such
much more
valuable.
powerful than we realize. We're much more
Yes.
powerful.
Yes. And let us lead and and in this thing with the best thing. What do you do to help women other than just on the healing stuff, but specifically gain that self-empowerment and because you've got that program you were talking about a little bit earlier that we touched on, but what is that really, that empowerment? Like, is that all of this what it entails, or you know?
It's all of it. I think that if I had to sum it up into one thing that I teach women the journey to self love.
Yeah,
My life slogan is self love is non negotiable. You
love that.
know, I have negotiated my safety and my finances and my wellness and but my and all of that when I began to operate under on top of a foundation of self-love. All of those things became non-negotiable to me. Undervaluing
Mhm.
myself, hurting myself, sabotaging myself, non-negotiable. I'm so grounded in knowing that um, that this life is an amazing journey. It's just an amazing journey. And when I stopped allowing myself to be victimized by the bad things
Yeah,
and realized that's just contrast. That's just a big
yeah,
confirmation that I'm not meant to do this and stop doing it.
yes,
Well, how
yes.
easy is that? So that's really what I do is I'm just passionate about teaching women the journey to self-love because when you have that locked in, manifesting happens, love happens, prosperity happens, sobriety happens, and we no longer white knuckle our way to it. We
Yes,
wake up with this childlike, excited spirit just to dive into it like beautiful sea waters, just to dive into it and let it infiltrate our entire being. And it's a choice though. It's
yeah,
it's a choice.
it certainly is. Oh my gosh. This has just been amazing, and I'm so grateful to know you. I hope that you can really feel how happy I am and just how much I appreciate you spending this time and sharing so much wisdom and beautiful experience and just all that you are here with this audience. And I know that it's going to touch people's hearts. I just know it. And so, I want people to definitely from the recovery community, go to the Win Foundation International.com and get signed up for, all of that. You get to go in as a guest the first time. So, go in, check it all out. Make sure that you go to drtracy.tv because you can find everything there. And it's
Yeah,
a
that's the
beautiful
best place.
space.
Go there and you can see everything.
And I've listened to that number 16. I think there's number 16 in all of us so many times. I was like, this is so important. I love it.
Oh, you met 16? Oh yeah,
Yes.
that's another fun subject to have. And that's part of that self-love is, making a seat at the table for 16. One seat.
Yes.
She gets one seat,
She just gets
And I,
one.
I always said that, inside of me rests 17 different personalities and we all know each other. We all get along really well, except 16.
Yeah.
And she's the one that can ruin my day and flip things on their head and whatnot. And I used to give her 17 seats at the table. And now
Mhm.
because that voice inside of me is trying to protect me, or it's been traumatized because it's been hurt in the past, or whatever reason, I don't kick her off the table because she's a part of the thread of the fabric of who I am.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I will always keep her there because what she survived was real.
Yes.
And
Yes.
at the end of the day, she really does love me when she kicks and screams from within.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
that's our sweet 16.
Yeah. And we all have one of those. We all have a 16.
Ew.
We all really, really do. And it's
And
very true.
The reason that she got the number 16 as a name is in my prayer and meditation time, it came to me 16. I'm like, why is she number 16? Because 6 plus 1 is 7, and 7 is a
Mm,
perfect number. And in
awesome.
spite of all that trauma, there's still that perfect being in there.
Yes. 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 And it's so much the key to that healing is that acceptance. And I'm going through a season in my life right now where that message is so important to me. That's why I've listened to it, over and over and over, because this too deserves a seat at the table. And if I don't honor this, if this isn't my contrast, how will I know how light I am if I don't ever have that contrast? Or
Exactly. Exactly. Contrast is
it's never
beautiful.
ending. It
Paintings
is.
can't be beautiful without contrast.
So true. Dr. Tracy, you are a gem in the world, and I'm grateful to say that I know you. And gosh, I'd love to do something like this again with you. I want to know how the book's doing, so I will keep in touch with you, because I would like to have you come back after the big conference and share about that and tell us all how it went,
Oh, I
if you
would
would be
love
willing.
to. I would love to. And if you'd like to drop in on the classes, and any of the women who are here, please head over to the website, drtracy.tv. And there's
Yes.
an area where you can get a free pass to attend the Reclaiming Me classes, and just drop the name of the show, The True Healing, our show here today with the Reverend, and we can have you be our first time guests. And we would love to have you and get you back to that amazing goddess that you are.
Beautiful. Everybody, don't waste time taking her up on this. I mean, it is very, you don't get a better deal than that. And the website at drtracy.tv, there's so much healing information about Dr. Tracy and about all of these programs right there on the website. You can get so much being on the website. So imagine what you can get if you go further. So I hope that everybody will pick up, especially if this is an area in which you need to or you're beginning to recover or are interested in. Make sure that you pick up Narctionary, the Narcissist Abuse Recovery Dictionary, available on Amazon.com, and you just type in like that under the screen, Dr. Tracy Kemble, and you can find all of the work is there, and it's all on the website too. Dr. Tracy, I am so full. I'm absolutely full from this conversation, and I just am in awe that I got to have it. I'm so grateful. I don't know how we got here. I know how, and I'm
I know
just
how.
so grateful, grateful, grateful. And so, thank you
Let's stay
for
in
spending
touch
this
for
time with
sure.
me, for
Thank you
sure.
for having me.
Blessings in everything that you do. And until next time, everybody, I'm going to leave you here. Let's grow, warriors. That's all we can do. Let's grow. Check out Dr. Tracy. Dr. Tracy, I'm your biggest fan, and I'll see you next time. Bye.